My name is Mori. I am a senior at Barnard College of Columbia University.
You actually transferred from the University of North Carolina. How did you make that transfer?
I applied transfer application.
Was it easy adapting to the culture at Columbia?
It was so difficult. I got rejected from all the clubs I was applying to, business, tech, even including Chinese student club rejected me.
Is everyone like super smart at Columbia?
Everyone's good at academics, but they're so multidimensional. Beauty, brain, and like multidimensional talent.
What are some really underrated resources that CS students are not aware of?
The first program I did that's really good is called you partner with industry partners. So I partner with Google and they award like 3K in the internship. Success or progress only comes from iterations and the dots will connect. People say rejection is a redirection. I don't believe that. I think it's redirection only if you make it a redirection.
Hello and welcome to the Job Right podcast. Today we'll be sitting down with Mori Liu and discussing her career journey. Mori is a fourth-year CS student at Columbia University, and over the past 4 years, she's had a variety of experiences, from software engineering to VC to product management. In this episode, we'll be sitting down with her to talk about her time at Columbia, her job search journey, and finally, actionable job search resources for you guys who are currently looking for a job in this tough economy. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode. To get us started, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
So my name is Mori. I am a senior at Barnard College of Columbia University. I study computer science and with a minor in philosophy. Since it's a career podcast, I worked first in VC, but then mainly in tech across a variety of different roles, including sales, marketing, product management, software. I also consider content as part of my career. So I'm a content creator on TikTok, Instagram, and also Red, which is a Chinese platform, focusing on tech, lifestyle, and just meaning of life, doing something purposeful with my life and inspiring more people to do so as well.
I've always wanted to ask this question, but Mori, are you an international student from China?
Yes, I'm not from the States. I think people get that confused a lot, especially with content, since I only speak English in my content. I am born and raised in China. I'm from Hebei province, Shijiazhuang city.
That's where my dad is from.
Shijiazhuang or
Yeah,
Hebei?
Shijiazhuang.
Oh, no way, because no one's from Shijiazhuang. And like when I say Shijiazhuang, people are like, where that is. Like mostly American people. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's 3 hour drive from Beijing. But I'm from Shijiazhuang. When I first came to US, it was Seattle when I was 6 or 7. And then I went back to China. I first came because my mom was doing a postdoc degree in neuroscience. And then went back to China. I came back when I was like 14 to Iowa for high school. And I lived with the host family and stayed there for 4 years before I moved to college.
Speaking of your educational background, you actually transferred from the University of North Carolina to Columbia University. How did you make that transfer?
I'm still a Tar Heel. Once a Tar Heel, always a Tar Heel. No, I fucking love UNC. One of the questions I get the most is, why did you transfer, right? Like, was it bad? Like, why was it bad? It wasn't bad. It was wonderful. But I transferred because I had a vision for myself where I know if I stayed there for over 2 years, freshman would be great, sophomore would be amazing, but junior, senior year, I would have hit a peak where I knew I have more potential to grow in a more stimulating and challenging environment. And New York and Columbia definitely did that for me. However, to answer your question,
Like, how did you do it,
yeah, how did I do it? I applied transfer application. So for transfer application, how it's different from normal applications, one, you have to write a why transfer essay. It's very, very important for you to actually think why you're going to transfer, because if you don't have that answer, then you're not going to be happy, even though you made it to an Ivy League. So I think that question, you should be very honest and genuine and truth seeking internally. For me, it was challenge, it was intellectual curiosity. It also was that UNC was a state school. 86% of the population was people from North Carolina. I love people from North Carolina. They're all really good people, but I sort of wanted environment where I can have more perspective, more opinions. So I mentioned that a lot in my essay. also you would need recommendation from your professors. So I
Okay.
was able to make really good relationship with my professors. And the recommendation I got wasn't like necessarily tech because I didn't apply CS. I think it was one a economics professor focusing on policymaking and entrepreneurship. It was a seminar level class, and I just had a really good time and made a good impression. Another professor was actually, I think, a writing professor. It was called Life Writing, where I had the professor for writing 101, and then I just wanted to write better, and I took his life writing class and read a lot of literature. So first, you need
The transfer essay
why I
and
say, and
yeah.
then the recommendation. But you also need a really good GPA. So transfer, they really, really, really look at your first year GPA. And
Hmm.
they also, if you transfer as a freshman, they also look at your high school GPA because it's not that far
Oh.
away. Like if you transfer as a sophomore, it's less important. For me, I had an extremely good GPA in high school, so I wasn't worried about that. And I had,
Hmm.
I think, 3.98, which is basically 4.0 in my freshman year of college. I think those helped. Beyond that, everything's proved through my extracurriculars, which I became more involved at in college. And I also was a research assistant at UNC School of Pharmacy. I think that experience helped.
So I'm not from the US, so I actually don't really know how this process works, but would you say that it's really, really competitive to get from a relatively small state school to like an Ivy League school like Columbia? Like, how many people succeed in that process?
It depends. Some people say Columbia is easier to get into as a transfer. And also UNC is it's actually pretty big. It's like one of the biggest public school in America. I think it's
Hmm.
the first public school in America. I think you just really have to have a strong reason. But overall, when you're transferring, don't just apply to Ivy Leagues. Because I had a roommate in UNC Chapel Hill, and my roommate was also when I was transferring, it kind of like triggered her, and so we are both transferring. But she only applied to Ivy, like only Ivies. I got into Barnard and I got into USC, but she only applied to Ivies, and I think at the end of the day, like she got rejected all of them, and she's really talented. So I would say when you're applying to transfer, don't just apply to Ivy Leagues. Certain school definitely have a higher acceptance rate to the others, so it's very relative.
Okay, so fast forward, you moved over from North Carolina to New York and you are at Columbia. As a transfer student slash international student slash Mori, was it easy adapting to the culture at Columbia and fitting in and making friends and adjusting to that lifestyle?
It was so difficult. It was one of the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, which I did not expect because I came here, I was so happy. I was like, New York, fresh start. But Columbia being the over competitive nature it is, I applied to like clubs just to adapt as a transfer student, make friends. Got rejected from all the clubs I was applying to, business, tech, whatever. And even including cultural clubs, like Asian American or like Chinese student club rejected me, if you can believe that.
Are
Um,
student clubs like a big thing at Columbia?
yes. And some clubs, there are consulting business clubs like AKSI or something. Their clubs are extremely competitive. And it's a social symbol. Now as a senior, I'm not that involved in clubs anymore. I'm more founding my own thing, hosting my own events, or I do a lot of stuff in the city. It's more like a bit more grown up than, not to say Columbia clubs are bad, because a lot of them are doing great things and I still help out with them, and a lot of my friends are president of them. But there's a world beyond Columbia clubs, beyond college clubs.
Hmm.
However, I would say in college, yeah, of course, clubs a big thing. Clubs big in every college campus. But back then, I was trying to join all these clubs, rejected me, and I was just very sort of contemplating on my decision because I gave up a lot of great resources, friends at UNC. I came here for a reason. I do everything for a reason, and that reason wasn't met. So I was really, really struggling, like mentally. And I tried to transfer back to UNC 3 times, and I even got readmitted. Like they had my name in the system. I even chose class for my next semester at UNC. But I think what I did that I'm most proud of is that I kept putting in the works, I kept putting in action, I kept trying different things, even though they didn't work out. And I kept exploring beyond the existing limit. So when Columbia clubs didn't take me, I went to the business school, like Columbia's business school. I attended events there and met actual CEOs, founders, venture people there. And I was just genuinely excited. I had no experience, but I genuinely was excited and networked with them and got opportunities, insane opportunities. And I think sophomore year summer was actually where everything took off. I got into a very competitive fellowship from GGV. It was like 1% acceptance rate. And the internship at the portfolio company I also did. And the AI/ML fellowship at Cornell Tech, I also worked at a startup. So that's where it took off. That's sort of the summer that made me decide to stay because I see what I can build here. But before that, the adjustment was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
You were telling me about this the other day, but apparently every single business kid in New York wants to be like an investment banker.
There's a
I guess it
finance
makes
bro
sense because
phase.
it's so close to
Yeah.
Wall Street, but that's so interesting.
Like you said, it's close to Wall Street, New York, Columbia, it's the environment shapes how we think. So when the title of an investment banker, of a consultant, of a hedge fund analyst, venture analyst is put on a pedestal, we tend to gravitate towards it. And most people who just step into college don't know what they want. So whoever is on a pedestal, they just reach for it. I think you should try everything. I mean, if finance is the next big thing or it seems glorious, you should go and try it out. But I feel like most of us know what we want. And if you don't feel like it's something you're passionate about, if you don't feel it when you're doing it, that's your answer. Because I had my little like finance phase at the beginning where I was applying to all this business like market like analyst consulting clubs, but even when applying, I feel like I wasn't able to give a really great answer in terms of why do I want to join and why I'm interested in it. And even venture capital, I'm genuinely passionate, but it wasn't about the numbers. It wasn't about the finance of it. It was more about the people, the innovation, the tech.
Sort of pivoting away from Columbia's business school back to the CS part of Columbia, which is where you go to actually. What is it like going to a top CS school? And actually, before you get into that, I want to ask you a quick question. This is like a fun trivia question, but do you know what are the top schools for CS in the world? Like, can you guess like the top 10 ranking essentially?
Oh, do you have the answer?
I have the answer. Okay, maybe I'll
Okay.
just read it out loud and you
No,
can
no,
react or something.
no. I will guess. I think I have a
Okay,
pretty good, solid guess for that.
okay.
So MIT, Carnegie Mellon. Well, is it just like America or like entire
Worldwide.
world? I
But you're on the right track. Those two
I
are
know I'm
top
on the
two.
right track. Um, ooh, Stanford,
Yeah, those are the top three.
because engineering is there. I would include some UK ones. Cambridge.
Yeah, number eight.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
There's another UK one.
Oxford.
Yes, that's number
Yeah.
four.
CS. Yes. Yes. Caltech.
Caltech is actually not on there. But
Oh,
there's
it
a few
should be.
other US schools on there.
Because I recently met like a 12 million founder that's from Caltech, so they're pretty intense.
Yeah.
Um, Columbia.
Unfortunately, not on the top 10.
I was like, I don't think it's on there, but just let me honor my school. Harvard.
Yes, number seventh. A bit lower on
Okay.
the list than I expected,
Yeah.
but yeah.
No, Harvard isn't like super CS driven.
Hmm.
Um,
So there is the number fifth spot and the number sixth spot, and then the ninth and the 10th. So
are
only four
they
more.
US school?
Yes, there's one more US school on here.
Oh, one more US school. What are the other schools? Oh, Waterloo.
Oh, Waterloo's not on here. Okay, no Canadian representation for us.
I think Canada has a lot of like some of the software engineers at my company are Canadian. They're Waterloo or
Mhm.
um other
Okay,
local
there's one more.
ones.
It's one of the UC schools.
Oh, Berkeley, Berkeley, period.
Yes, UC Berkeley.
Berkeley,
Yes.
period. Yeah, yeah, that I just need
Period.
a reminder. Yeah, definitely Berkeley.
Okay,
Yeah,
and there's actually two schools from Singapore, which is crazy.
the National University of Singapore or something.
Yes, that's number six.
Yeah, I know people from there, but I don't know much other schools from Singapore.
So the ninth and the 10th spot. So they're actually tied. So
Okay,
we have Nanyang Technological University in Singapore and
never heard of that.
ETH Zurich, ETH. I have never heard, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing
uh,
it correctly. But yeah, those are the schools that are in the top 10. But nevertheless,
nice.
Columbia is still one of the top CS schools in the world. I think just the name Columbia itself, overall, what is it like going to like a top CS school in the world?
I guess a lot of people are wondering that. I do want to clarify that I am Barnard, which is a one of the school in Columbia universities. Columbia have Columbia College, CEAS, which is the engineering school, Barnard College, and GS, which is general studies. I do take 99% of my CS class at Columbia. In terms of actual experience, it is difficult, it is challenging. I made TikToks to process my experience, and you can see that on my TikTok where how I study for
Mhm.
exams, how I cram for exams, and sort of how the material is structured and how the professor teach. I would say there are a lot of professors that teach in a very sort of intentional way. I think one of the most influential class I took was AP programming, which is written in a lower level language in C, and the professor is called Jay Lee. He doesn't only teach how linked lists work, how pointers work, but also how should you even frame a CS problem, and that also is the concept. Another professor called Lydia Chilton teach in a user interface design class, which is UI. So I really loved how the classes are not just purely technical, but also teach you how to think, and that I think that's what education should be about is modes of thinking and not just memorization. Because all the concept I learned in class, I forget. But the way how I think about problem, that stayed.
Is everyone like super smart at Columbia? Like, is everyone just like an academic weapon, like 160 IQ, like super well spoken? Like, what are the
Okay.
people like?
I'm really glad you asked that question because that's sort of my fear when I came into it. Why I was like not adjusting is because like everyone was doing really well. And I think one of the most biggest common misconception is like Ivy League, everyone's super smart, right? And like
Mhm.
everyone's good at academics. But the shock I got when I first came in here is that everyone's good at academics as like an ability. They're all very smart, but they're so multidimensional. So one of the person I met in my first year here called Elissa, she is an applied physicist, so she does a lot of work with quantum computers. Right. I met her at my econ class where she was promoting her fashion company. So she started a fashion company called Upcomers to bring more knowledge, resource to minority brands, black owned minority brands. And she also looks fire. She's beautiful. Like her Instagram is like, I met her and I saw her promoting company and chatted with her. I was like, this is interesting. Got her Instagram. I was like, shit, does people like this even exist?
So it's like Columbia is filled with people with both beauty and brains.
Beauty, brain, and like multi-dimensional talents. So they're in STEM, but they're also in fashion. But they're also philosophers, but they're also like advocating for human rights. Like that's what shocked me, and that's what made me insecure because academic wise, I honestly I'm a good student growing up, and I don't think Columbia classes are hard to a level where I can't handle. It's everything's pretty much doable for me. There haven't been a class where like I can't do this like at all. Like if I have time, if I put in effort, I know I have the academics down. But there are things way beyond academics. I was like, I don't even know how to start from this. I don't know how to start a fashion company. I don't know how to like go into venture. I don't know how to like build an AI startup at the age of like 19. So those are the stuff that made me insecure and what shocked me. I want to be like that. I want to be able to do like fashion and tech and like look great and like philosophize. So
Yeah.
having those role models or those like pictures there to see it's possible sort of put a very big pressure in me, but also a drive. Um,
Yeah, no, it's like you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like these people are so talented and so cool, and they're like literally doing all these amazing things.
yeah.
Meanwhile, like, what am I doing? Like, I need to get my shit together.
Yeah, so it's a push and the pressure. But I think one of the biggest skill that I learned at Columbia, one of the most valuable skills, how do you coexist with these people? How do you be inspired without feeling pressured? I have so many friends still like that are doing great in their own domain, but I choose to be inspired by them than pressure with them. And I
Hmm.
think that's how I want my friends or other people to think of me is like I'm sharing my achievements or just like not even achievements, just stuff I do, not to impress or not to make you feel pressure, but more acting as an inspiration as oh you can do this with CS. You don't have to be a software engineer, or you can do like multiple things at the same time, and you apply that to your life.
You mentioned this in a TikTok video the other day, but how much do you pay for tuition at Columbia as an international student?
So I pay 90K per year without including my personal expenses. I think I pay like 80K if you don't include rent because I live off campus, but I pay higher
Mhm.
for rent since I'm not in the dorm. So in total, probably 100K, which is a lot. Yeah.
I think I saw somewhere. So I'm not from the US, which is why every time I see the tuition amount, it gives me a heart attack because why are you paying that much for school? But I think I also saw that for some universities, if your household income is below
Yeah,
100K per year, you essentially get free everything. And if your income is below 150K, it's like you get tuition for free, but you have to pay for housing. And then if it's above 200K, good luck. Is that true for US like
that's true.
tuition? Is that how it
That's true.
works?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like people should seek more scholarship, more, help when they need it, and not just say, "Oh, I don't have the money, so I can't pursue, this opportunity." A lot of my friends are first gen, low income, and including the one I mentioned before, Yelissa, the founder of Upcomers. Her tuition's entirely covered, and she
Mhm.
get refund from living off campus to pay for her rent.
Okay, now we move on to your career section, which is actually the part that I'm really excited for. The clap was kind of loud. Okay, first question. Is it hard to find a CS job right now in this economy?
Yes, the job market is shit right now. But I think that's also a reminder of one, are you studying just to get a job? Are you getting your degree just to be employed? The answer should be no. Education, school, especially liberal arts education, should teach you a mode of thinking than a hard skill. Because hard skill, that's boot camp. You can just sign up for CS boot camp, and that's more effective than any college, honestly, because they actually teach you how to be a software engineer. And that I don't think Columbia or most colleges does that. It's way more theoretical. A lot of stuff you learn are useless if you're only using it to get a job. So even though the market is bad, I feel like people should approach education or approach their career not as just employment as a title, but what are you actually trying to do with your life? Even with career for CS, you can do so many other stuff with the technical understanding. You can be a product manager, you can be a technical marketer, you can be a sales engineer, or you can build your own startup and you can educate people about technology online.
Wait, I literally forgot to ask this earlier, but oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this. This is like your whole content niche, but what are your biggest study hacks for CS
Oh,
students?
biggest study hack. I think for CS, when you're just entering to the major, get the basics down. I think data structure is a very important class. If you really want to go deep in the field, get your fundamentals down. And also, for actually learning those things, understand the mechanisms. Don't just memorize. Understanding the mechanism, how a program works, that are universally applicable. And also, when you're actually programming, make sure a small component work before you program the entire thing. Another thing is learning how to read the problem because as you go along your career, you're going to read PRDs that are like 10, 20, 30 pages long. And in your class, you read assignment page for a programming assignment that are like 2, 3, 6, 7 pages long. learn how to read the requirements and learn how to transform them into steps, not entire program, but like steps within the program. What do I do first? What do I second? And be able to like fundamentally break down a large problem
Hmm.
into smaller component and recompose them. I think that's my biggest hack for CS, and that's something I've applied beyond even coding in my life, in solving business problems, in solving my life problems, in solving what do I buy first in the grocery store. It's genuine, and that's why I liked CS. That's why I decided to major in it eventually, even without any technical background. Both my parents are doctors. And also TA
Yeah.
office hour. TA officer. Do ask for help. If you don't know something, ask the professor. But at least in my school, my TAs are amazing. And I also shout them out in my TikToks. One of the ones I remember very clearly, Shreya. She's like a national scholar. I found out later. And she works at Two Sigma. I also found out that about later. But like her office hour is like insanely well structured, and she break down the problem into like visuals. So she would draw the program out and how it worked together. And her office hour honestly helped me like to get like a top 10% in one of the most hardest CS class at Columbia ever. So definitely, you know, not just like read like computer science book on your own or read lectures on your own. Recombine those information, find different ways to learn the same thing. YouTube videos, there are a lot of different information structure to learn the same subject. Find what's
Mhm.
best for you and use it.
There are many career options for CS students. And personally, like I only know like a few of like the most obvious ones, like software engineering or like you work at like a FANG company. So in preparation for our episode, I actually asked ChatGPT what are the top 5 best career options for CS students. And I'm going to read it to you so you can let me know what you think or if that's actually accurate because I feel like it's not accurate. So according to ChatGPT, here are the top 5 best career paths for CS students. Number 5 is academia and advanced research. So I think that's kind of like getting a PhD and becoming like a professor at a
Mhm.
top university. That's number 5. Number 4 is artificial intelligence and machine learning research. So it's like working at OpenAI or DeepMind or something like that. Number 3 is quantitative finance at a firm like Citadel or Two Sigma or Jane Street, something like that. Number 2 is joining a good startup or start something entrepreneurial. And then number 1 is big tech, so working at a FANG company. Do you think this is accurate for most CS students?
Okay, so the definition of a good career path varies with
Yeah.
individual. It's very relative because joining a big tech might not be the best option if you want to eventually build your own company, because in big tech is always like agile development. It's very standardized, and you might just be put on a team where your entire responsibility is making a button work on
Hmm.
Amazon's like front page. That doesn't teach you anything. So big tech is good for people that are building credibility with their career. So you want a brand name on your resume to say, okay, this person is not bullshitting, and he
Hmm.
actually got basic technical stuff down. And it's good for you to learn how stuff gets developed in a very relatively innovative, pretty big, pretty accomplished company, but not great if you want accelerated growth or you want big impact or you want a
Hmm.
very high learning curve, right? It also depends on what team you are on. But I would say startup provides more of those learning curves and more of that growth and more challenges and more ownership and more impact. I think Stripe, Coinbase, those are like larger startups. Smaller ones I worked for, Neon, which is a database company, their engineers get paid as much as Google. I know that because I was in the company and I talked to one of the engineers whose girlfriend works at Google, and I made them compare salary on the spot. Um, but
I was looking
mhm.
it up. I think people from like Coinbase or Roblox, which is I guess also a startup currently, they make like $9,000 per month. Like, hello, that's crazy.
No,
as
they
an
make
intern?
300. Oh, I was like full time they make like over 200K, and I know someone's manager at Coinbase makes over 600K. And he worked at a quantitative finance firm before that. So now he basically earned all his money already. So now he was
Yeah.
working at Coinbase just for fun. So that's just something to know that's possible. Um,
Yeah,
so
and
that
also
brings
for the
us,
third
well,
one, yeah,
quantitative
like the quant.
finance, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's been so popular in like the past 2 years. I feel like everyone is like finding out about quant finance. People are like screw Fang, like that's like a kiddie stuff. Like I want to like go into quant. Like that's where like the
Yeah,
serious like real big
yeah,
brain money is. I was like, oh,
yeah.
maybe that should be number one, but who knows?
It is a lot of money, and actually, a lot of my friends are recruiting for them like right now, and most of them are CS math majors. So, as from the name, quant, like it's very quantitative. Whereas
Yeah.
in a startup or a tech, you can be designing a front end, you can be sort of working on some sort of product stuff, building an app. Whereas quant finance, it's a lot of algorithms, so it's a lot of research. So I think quant finance also have a department like where's quant research finance. I know a lot of people from Citadel where some of them it's like high low frequency trading, right? So how do you like different frequency of trading also categorize different types of work, and there are a team of researchers that sort of research the market, and they're a team of software developers that like develops the software that handles that large the frequency, and there's traders that are actually making the transaction. So in quant finance a lot of the work is going into building the platform and researching what is the best algorithm to calculate risk, calculate which stock should we buy. I'm not an expert in this field, but I do have a lot of friends in it. And I have also friends that retired from that industry because they find no meaning in it or it's super burnt out. But I can confirm that the money in it is can even be more than big tech.
And the next step is like artificial intelligence and machine learning research. I feel like you kind of know something about that because I didn't you do like an experience
Yeah,
that's similar to that?
yeah. So academia or research in general, I think the last two can be combined because it's both academia and research.
Oh,
Less
okay.
money, definitely less money. And I'm doing it only because I'm in school and I have a genuine curiosity in those domain. And I saw a quote from Oppenheimer this morning where technology, especially deep technology, are discovered because they exist, not because they're useful. I think that's what I apply to research is like I am like looking into this, I'm spending time, I'm thinking about it, I'm working on it, not because it's useful, not necessarily has a utility towards it, but I'm driven by genuine curiosity or like academic interest. I think research exists for that reason, for exploration, for the sake of exploration. Then, oh, I'm gonna make an app that has like 100K MLR next month. It's a
Hmm.
very different structure of implementation and motivation than corporate, than business. But a lot of my more startup work, a lot of the product I build for real users are inspired by my research. I asked one of my professors why she chose to do research because she also consults with Amazon. It's the same professor that teaches user interface design, Lydia Chilton. I was like, why don't you go to an industry? Why did you eventually choose to do research? Because research, you can do a project, write a paper, and just be done with it. You don't have to worry about scaling it. You don't have to worry about the boring stuff. How is it getting like past certain like security checks, or how is it getting deployed, how is it like feedback from users. It can stand very individually, but overall there is less money in it. And an example would be one my friend told me he's passionate about math, right, and he wants to get a math PhD, but he's trying to make 10 million from being a software engineer before that. So that's just an example to say there might
10
not be
million.
as much money in
Yeah.
research.
Going back to sort of your own personal career, you've had various different types of experiences from software engineering to VC to product management and even more like marketing, like you mentioned. Overall, in this process, there is so much. exploration, but I'm assuming also rejection as well, especially in this economy. So I want to ask you, how do you handle these difficult challenges and
Mhm.
rejection?
My first round of rejection was as early as my college application, where UNC was a great school, but it wasn't the best school I thought I can get into. And I try to handle rejection as well. People say rejection is a redirection. I don't believe that. I think it's a
Oh,
redirection only if you make it a redirection. So for my first rejection, I took it as a message for me to diversify from academics, to not just focus on GPA, to join more clubs, and to just seek more meaning beyond just studying. And that really helped me. That served me well. Another round of rejection, college clubs. I use that as a redirection to just do even more, even cooler stuff and find even cooler events at the business school in the city, and eventually got better internships than people in the club. And that's an actual flex because they end up coming to me and wanting to coffee chat when those are the same people that reject me from those clubs. There's always more to meets the eye. There's always more to what you think was possible, but people are just too afraid to imagine it. Another rejection, definitely internships. I got rejected to so many internships, but rejection is also an opportunity for you to ask, do you actually want to do this? When I'm rejecting from like consulting internships or like IB internships, like I didn't even want to do it. I had no experience, so why am I applying? Because a lot of people are applying just because it's a name brand company or it's what everyone's applying to. But rather than like sending 200 applications, apply for the ones that actually fit your interests and spend more time on that. I do encourage people to apply to opportunity when they're not fully qualified, but if you're not even interested, then it's a different story. And I can I would like to plug job right here because it's matching you with the opportunity that best suits you than what normal job application portal is like. You're applying to 200 jobs. I think that
mhm.
match, that tailoring of career path is what I really champion. And also rejection is a test of your sort of integrity. What I'm most proud of is not my achievement. It's not the internship I got because those are just titles. It is how I chose to act in the face of failure. How I still chose to put in the inputs when I don't like I had no idea there will be an outcome from that. A lot of internships, a lot of the opportunities I got, I had no idea why they chose me. And I was not fully prepared in the process at every step. But I just still went for it. And I made the most out of my circumstance. The last one I would say is you learn from it. You really learn from it, really reflect on it. I think people heard this a million times, learn from mistakes, learn from failure, but how do you actually practice it? How do you reflect on it? I journal about it. I actually make actionable things I can implement for my next application, the next things I do from a failure. It's not just like, oh, I had this revelation, but what are you gonna do?
Wait, that was so good. That was like in chronological order. Yeah, that was so good. On a more positive note, and then maybe a more productive note, because while you have to deal with failure in life, you also want to strive for success. And I think there's so many ways to do that, like you mentioned. So I wanted to ask you, what are some really underrated resources that CS students are not aware of that they should be aware of? Like, I should apply to this. I should at least be aware of this, like what are those opportunities?
I think for me, the first program I did that's really good is called Breakthrough Tech at Cornell Tech. I made multiple videos on TikTok, Xiaohongshu about that program, and I had people that up to me in person and telling me, "Oh, I applied and I got into this program just because of you. I didn't know it existed before." I think that program, on a very honest level, it's such a good program to get you introduced to AML, and you partner with industry partners. So I partner with Google. We develop a algorithm for advertisement click-through rate, and then we also did like a CV program in partnership with New York Botanic Garden, and we actually visited the garden for our closing ceremony. So that was very, very cool. And there's a lot of career development resources where it's like direct partnership with industry people that funnels you into an internship. So that was a really great experience, and people in that program, the organizers really cared, and I'm friends with my TA. Like, so definitely apply to that. I think they start every like April ish, but you can look at my TikToks for more information. And another program I recently attended is called O for You, Out for Undergrad, is to provide career development for LGBTQ plus students, and they have a conference. They have a conference that's O for You Tech. They also have O for You Digital, which is the one I attended. It's tech, but also tech and marketing. All the big names are there: Google, Microsoft, like Stripe. Basically, every Intuit, every big tech company on earth are recruiting directly from them, like Bloomberg. And that conference wasn't just, oh, let's like make you employable. It's about people finding their voice and finding their identity and navigating a career as a human and not just seeing career as a job. So I really like that conference. I did win an award at that conference called McKinney Award in marketing. It's a competition, and they award like 3K and an internship to the one person that won it in the conference.
Wait, so
Every
you won
year,
3K?
I have to check like it's
Oh, wait.
huge. 3K and an internship at any office I pick and any position I pick.
And what did you pick?
McKinney, which is the advertisement agency.
I mean, congrats. That's huge and that's
I'm
so
very
exciting.
excited.
You do a lot of hackathons. Do you think that every CS student should do more hackathons?
Actually, like when I was like looking through the question for this podcast in the dining hall, a girl came up to me. Like she looked straight in my eyes and like said hi. I was like, oh my god, I don't remember this person, but like, hi. But she was actually one of my followers, and she mentioned to me how my participation in hackathons really inspired her. I was really scared to get into hackathons at the beginning. It seemed super intimidating, and even now, I won't say I'm the best coder. But exposing myself to those environment taught me what really hackathon was about, which is not necessarily coding. It was also pitching. How do you frame the narrative around the product? How do you understand the problem and like find a solution that's very targeted, tailored to this problem and its users? But two, teamwork. I think teamwork is extremely important in a hackathon. Where the recent one, JP Morgan, also a AI consumer hackathon hosted by OpenAI and acing. In those hackathons now, I try like intentionally try to step out from the coding role, but more as a leadership, but more design the product and design the pitch. Both hackathons, the idea was entirely formed by me, and I allocated a lot of my responsibility to managing the team and make sure
Hmm.
everyone is aligned in the same goal. Because teamwork is about collaboration, and collaboration is about not necessarily specialization, but for efficiency, you do need some level of specialization. Where how do you allocate tasks to each individual and make sure one, they complete their task, and two, if everyone complete their task, does it eventually combine to a fully functional product? And then
Hmm.
me using the pitch to like streamline like a holistic storyline with it to present to the judges. So I tended to like really hone in my craft in leadership, in ideation, in design, and in pitching. I can definitely code, and if you put a gun to my head, I can code the entire thing. But I just don't think in a normal circumstance where there's no gun in my head, that's my best, place to showcase and utilize my abilities. However, I do encourage everyone to go into hackathons. And I've worked people, even me, like I've been in roles in a hackathon where my first one at Cornell Tech, it was AI called Llama Hack. I was teamed with two people. I wasn't technical. I know how to code, but I wasn't technical at all, basically, in that competition. But it was also my idea where I crafted an entire pitch deck. and the one person that was technical built it out. And we were just like a bunch of undergrads. I was a sophomore, and we were competing against master students, industry people, and we were selected as one of the top 10 or top 8 teams to pitch in front of the entire judge. And there was like 200-300 people attending that competition. So we built an educational app, but that was a very transformative experience to me, where even though I didn't code a line in that hackathon, I made a significant contribution that drive the product, and learned a lot from it, and sort of apply those learning to my future experiences.
Speaking of like other cool things that you can do as a student or just as a person besides, doing hackathons or going to conferences, you also make content on social media. I've seen your videos on TikTok and Instagram. And how has creating content impacted your career development and who you are as a person?
So internally, first, is that it helped me process my life. It helped me reflect on my own life, because writing a script, it takes me a lot of time. Like, my content takes way longer to produce than it should have. I've been creating content for like just a little bit over a year. Whether
Mhm.
it's from editing or like writing stories or visuals, designing a thumbnail. I actually treat each step of the process as a way of, oh, how do I think? What is my style? What is my brand? And I think those things only come out to light if you just keep doing it. It doesn't come out from just thinking, it comes out from doing stuff over and over again and looking back and see how everything connects eventually. And also, beyond my personal growth from it, is expressing your passions, your ideas, your capabilities, what you're doing out there to a public audience. You don't know who they are. And there's a lot of unexpected connection that come out of it. One example would be, I talk about my VC journey. I talk about, the tech products I'm developing. And I attended a VC panel at Columbia. They were from Headline VC. So it was one of the manager partner and an associate that was speaking. And the associate actually, when I went up to talk to them, the associate actually is one of my followers. And she recognized me. She was like, "Are you Mori?" And she was an investor at the firm. And I got to talk to her even more through a brunch. And she paid for the brunch. For like, it was supposed to be like a coffee chat. But she just really liked my content, really want to see, what I'm trying to do with it and how I think. But from that brunch, we actually became really good friends. And in the most
Mhm.
recent hackathon, I run into her again, where she was sort of like scouting different startup opportunities in the space. And she introduced me to her friend from Y Combinator from Sequoia. So it's sort of that genuine connection you make over you showcasing stuff you believe you're passionate about. I landed internships from it, like Job Right. They've first reached out to me as an influencer, and I really liked their product and sort of seeked more opportunities from that. But it all start with you vocalizing your beliefs, your passions, and the work you have done. And that's what you do with resumes, right? But resumes is a piece of paper. It doesn't reach millions of people. It reaches a recruiter that might not even read it. So
Mhm.
I think content is a way for me to just vocalize what I believe in, what I'm passionate about, what I'm building, even though it might not be perfect.
Creating content really gets you in the door in so many different places in life. And there's this really famous quote, which is, it's all about who you know. So, your network, your connections, but increasingly it's more about who knows you. And
Yeah.
as a university student, not that many people is going to know you because you don't really have a reputation, you don't really have much experiences. But if you make content, you can really flip that around. And
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, is because I don't want to explain myself to every single people I meet. So content is really showing me as my entire portfolio, and allow people to get know me better on a deeper level. And also now there's a lot of founder-led marketing where it is impossible, it's almost impossible to build a 10x better product these days. So why should people buy from you? It's because they believe in your mission, they like you as a person, and they're invested. And making audience invested in your brand, in your platform, that's a skill on its own. And that's a skill that will make your product succeed as an unfair advantage. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not from me. That came from Gary Tan, which is the founder of Y Combinator. So don't take it from me.
Okay, the last question that I'm going to ask you today is, if you can go back in time and talk to a 18-year-old Mori and you can give her advice, what would you say to her?
I would say first, don't be afraid to fail and don't be afraid of doing things imperfectly. Content post when you're 80% ready. Internships apply when you're not fully qualified. Success or progress only comes from iterations, and the dots will connect at the end. I think another advice I would tell them is really try to find something that's unique to you that fulfills your personal potential, even though there's no blueprint, there's no guideline, there's no famous title attached to it. And also find connection between things, find connection between subjects, between unrelated things you do. I find the connections between content, tech, but also entrepreneurship. But before, I used to do those things very separately, and it was very painful to try to diversify myself and switch my brain so many times and balance all those things. But just believe, really have that leap of faith that at the end, everything will combine and form something so unique that is previously unimaginable.
Mm-hmm. Mori, thank you so much for coming on the Job Right podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I had a really great time just talking about myself.
Okay, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe or follow this podcast wherever you listen. In addition, go check out JobRed AI. The link is in our description, and we'll see you in the next episode.